I am taking a brand new account all the way from 1000 trading to 2000 trading, sharing many different strategies you can use to win more chess games. And in this video I will be sharing a very interesting strategy. I will demonstrate this in a game. So we are playing with the black pieces, and I will show you one of my favorite strategies for the black pieces, which is to not play any opening theory at all, but instead we are going to do what I call dark square control. We are basically going to try and control all of the dark squares. If you have seen my previous videos, this is a little bit the reverse strategy basically of my light square control strategy. It's a little bit more difficult with black, but it is a system you can basically use and you don't have to study any opening theory. We just want to attack all of the light squares. I am thinking there is a way that we can just eliminate this knight, and if we eliminate the knight, that's basically one piece who was guarding the dark squares who is already gone. I do have to watch out, we are always weakening this a little bit, but his queen is not going to come out anytime soon, so it is fine. So we can play this. Of course, we can also, I'm going to trade, because we are basically removing pieces which can help him. We do have to be a little bit careful he doesn't at one point here end up grabbing this pawn for free. For example, if I move my knight, there might be some line where he tries to play some tactic and then win this pawn. So we do have to always watch out. So I am going to play this move, just a little bit solid move, a safe move. I don't want to run into any troubles. And then we are going to continue our development. In the future, of course, we are going to push this pawn to c5 because I do want dark square control. That is very important. But for now, I am always rather safe than sorry. I would always rather play the extra safe move than to take a risk. So I'm now thinking, can I just push this, develop this knight, develop this knight, castle. And then we will have to do a slow build-up. If you are playing the opposite strategy with white and you are doing the light square control strategy, it is a little bit easier in my opinion, because basically you have the move. You're always the first to move. With black, you always have to do a little bit of defense as well. And we have to play some, I'm going to say, awkward moves, where basically we are blocking our own diagonal temporarily with a knight, things like that. If I just castle, he's going to play bishop h6 and basically trade away my bishop, which would be the most terrible situation. So I am going to play pawn to h6 and attack the bishop, because I don't want to lose this bishop, basically. It is my most important piece. So let's see, how is he going to respond to this? All right, so this bishop is one of his most important pieces. I'm thinking if we can attack it, but since he already played h3, he might be able to just retreat. So I will have to think for a moment. We can also play e5, but usually you don't want to block up your own diagonal, because this is still dark square control. We want to control all of these dark squares. For example, queen b6, c5. If he ever pushes, we can take, and he temporarily gets to block this diagonal, but we can always move and then win it back. So I don't see much of a problem. If we do castle, we are losing this, so I do have to watch out for that. So I do think I am going to play this. See what he does with the bishop. Maybe he goes back, but anyways, if he goes back, at least I can castle. So that's also fine. If I want to castle, of course, we don't have to castle immediately. So I am thinking of a couple of things. It's dark square control. You can see we are starting to gain control over the dark squares. Maybe queen b6, maybe c5. Those are interesting moves. Or castling. He can always play g4, but then I can just go back. And we can always play c5. We do have to watch out he doesn't just get a simple push. Or if he castles on this side of the board. I am just going to castle. It's the most simple move. We are going to see what they play. And probably this knight will just have to go back where it came from. But at least we were able to castle without any trouble. And if he tries to do this again, now we have king h7 and we are protecting this. Because of course we don't want to trade away the bishops. So this is a very simple structure to remember, because this bishop is our key piece. And he is playing exactly what I wanted him to play. Castling on the opposite side of the board, which will make this super interesting. I have to think a little bit because this makes everything very dynamic. But basically now we can start an entire pawn storm, and our bishop was already aiming at this anyways. So yeah, we have b5, we have a5. I think b5 first makes sense. We want to attack immediately. We want dynamic chess. It's funny, by the way, we can in some lines still go here. We do have to watch out with the bishop, but I like how we basically did this maneuver and then, yeah, just reversed. But now it's opposite side castling. So it's still dark square control, of course. I am mainly caring about this diagonal, but I do have to push my pawns on the opposite side of the board. Otherwise, I'm going to be in trouble. He can push this, which I think doesn't really matter. If we push, we are basically giving him an anchor for attack. If we don't, we can always push this. We do have to be a little bit careful. If he pushes, we push. And he can always sacrifice, but I don't think he is really going to benefit. And also we can potentially pin his queen to the king. So I think it's all fine. I want to push, but also I'm allowing the knight to move. But I do get to open up the king. Or I have to do this first and then push, but then they can take my pawn. So I'm going to push. Dark square control. We are fighting for the dark squares. Yep, that is fine. We are gaining some dark square control. His knight looks pretty trapped as well, and we are opening up this for the rook. Okay. The question is, how do we continue? c5, but it is a little bit slow. I might also just go in with the queen and see if we can do something, but I don't see anything immediately. Or I might have to go in with this knight as well, like this knight maneuver. Let me think for a moment. All right, I think queen a5 is the best plan because of multiple calculations that I did, but I think this is the best plan. But it's not super easy right now. We do have the dark squared control, but basically I have to somehow get rid of these pawns so that my bishop opens up. That would be nice. That's the goal basically, dark square control. We want to control the dark squares, but with the black pieces you always have to take some time. That's not a good move. And yeah, take some time and be patient as well. So I'm thinking if d5 just works, it does trade in the center. And e5, the problem is, well, e5 would maybe also work, but I might be blocking up my own pieces. I think this is interesting here. And the good thing with this opening is you can basically play this without really needing to study any theory. As long as you just focus on playing normal moves, solid moves, focus on the dark squares, it's super easy. Yeah, now we do get a free pawn, and that also opens up our bishop. So we can play this. I'm just thinking we have to play very dynamic chess since we are opposite side castling, and this is not the most dynamic move. Also maybe e6, c5, and then c4 would look great because we want to open up this diagonal. But I will take this. Basically, we are already removing the central pawns. Now the bishop is getting a little bit stronger. We just have to get rid of this pawn. In a safe way, of course. We don't want to be reckless. We want to be safe. So maybe e6, c5. Something like this. Okay. I actually think this might also be interesting. Even if he doubles up the pawns, we basically get an extra pawn controlling the dark squares. I'm gonna pre-move a little bit as well, because he is playing super fast and I am just talking, so... Let's see what he plays. So I still have a couple of plans. I basically want to open up the dark squares. He can take this with his queen, which I miscalculated apparently. I thought this wouldn't work, but of course this knight is hanging. So now I have to dig myself out of this hole. That's what you get when you talk and play at the same time. All right, but it's still fine. We are just gonna have to play a little bit more dynamic. Temporarily sacrifice some material, and then now we are opening up everything, which was the goal, but I didn't want to do it losing a knight. That's a little bit of a miscalculation, but yeah. I think I'm just talking too much. Again, once again, talking too much. But this happens, and most of you probably also play bad moves, so sometimes. So this is how to dig yourself out of a hole. But basically, I don't care. We didn't really need the knight anyways. Now I'm just gonna attack the king, basically. And I already do see some plans that we have. I think maybe even the queen here would be interesting, because we can always go in with the check and then do this for a checkmate. Check with the knight here is also interesting in some lines, but the king, we don't want to let the king escape. So this is very interesting. I don't know what exactly... I think the problem is just that I miscalculated the fact that this knight was hanging. That's the problem. I did know that he was going to take this pawn, but I thought I'll just play my rook over and that's fine. But of course, not if your knight is hanging on d7, then it's not so fine anymore. But we just need to find some counterattack. It's not. I don't think it's going to be super complex. He does have this move, which I don't like. So what do we do? Check first. And then check here. Basically got his king on the run. But I don't see any follow-up. Well, maybe we have this check. Then his king goes back. No, I don't really see follow-up. This also looks fine. Or we attack the queen, which is also possible. The queen might get trapped in some line. I think he might go for this, and that would be annoying. I think I'm gonna... This is playing for tricks in a way, but I don't see anything else. This opens up the king, gives a check. He goes here. We give a check and we win the bishop. I think this is the problem with the other move is it's basically playing for tricks, and I really don't like playing for tricks. But here, if he goes here, we can even activate a rook. If he goes back, we can even take this pawn. And in any case, we are picking up the bishop. So this is how we are going to make our comeback. But it's pretty sad that I messed up the opening. Am I going to give them this check? He goes here. I can trade the rook, basically eliminating a pair of rooks. But I think it's more fun to keep the tension, and then we can check in the future. Because we're also threatening this. But yeah, we are back. We are at material again. Didn't want this to happen. Our strategy was great, but I messed up this one move, so that's a little bit sad. Yeah, now the clock is buzzing. Let's see. This looks like it's gonna lead to massive problems, or he has to sack a rook, or he is gonna lose both rooks, actually. and his knight. I'm just seeing if I can find a way to do a checkmate. I do think I will have a checkmate soon. That's dropping a rook. That's not good. He didn't see it. But how do I checkmate in this position? Probably just rook to e7. But I can't play that, so I have to move my king over. Sure. Rook here. And then we might have checkmate. Didn't want this to happen, but it's a good way of showing what happens when you misplay. And now we are just going to trade. But still, 27 seconds. Not going to be easy. He basically has to trade the queen. And I'm going to pre-move a bunch. And now we just have checkmate. All right, that's it.